build a thriving business. What's going on, folks? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. We have an amazing guest today. From frontline to boardroom, this individual has built many high-performance teams. He's involved brands. He is an expert when it comes to franchise systems and business systems in the U.S. and abroad. His functional, competencies, I was getting a little tongue-tied there, include operations, biz development, marketing, sales, and supply chain. Without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Phil Harvey, to the show. What is going on, my friend?
It's a beautiful day. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Henry.
Phil, I am so happy that I linked up with you on LinkedIn. You know, I got to tell you, your LinkedIn profile is extremely impressive. And I said, I need to have this guy on the show because this guy knows a thing or two about building business. And that's what the show's all about. So for those folks who don't know who Phil is, give us a 3-4 minute background, some context around you, what you do, and why you do it.
Sure. So the common thread for me has always been franchising. And lo and behold, when I started my professional life, I started with American Express and financial services. And I didn't know it, but actually at that time, their retail level travel services operations, a lot of them were franchised. Well, I learned that as I began to interact with them and support them, both on financial services and travel services. But then I started to hone my expertise and my capabilities, not only on payment systems, but also on franchising. So as I started to grow and took on new roles, ultimately I had the opportunity to learn what brands were. And combining brands and franchising, it became a very natural thing for me to help build brands. So I've literally hatched them, conceived them, built them. I've worked for the largest of brands, public and private. I've had the privilege and opportunity to build teams to help drive their growth. I've also had the responsibility for shared services to help make sure that franchise systems are doing what they're supposed to do and building value and creating opportunity for entrepreneurs. And I've also had the opportunity to do it in multiple industries, from travel and financial services to hospitality, as well as education. And so I come here to this point today after a relatively long journey in a professional life, feeling very refreshed, very passionate and energized, because I get to do what I love to do, which is to help those who wish to be entrepreneurs to become entrepreneurs and to use the franchising business model to get there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So with all that said, right? A lot of the folks that listen to this podcast are typically small business owners. Perhaps some are just solopreneurs that are trying to build and scale their business. So you've worked with a lot of bigger brands, and so there's a lot of things that work at that level that could be perhaps modeled and scaled down for the folks that I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things that we can talk about today that will help their businesses thrive and grow, you know, in 2019 and beyond? Sure.
Having spent the better part of the last 15 years working with individual entrepreneurs, and actually the last 5 years in more of we'll call it an emerging entrepreneurial space, small business, the things that we can do in the small business arena, we're nimble. So we can take advantage of the things that you see as headlines in the big business arena or on major news outlets, and we can go after action on them rapidly. The best thing that I can suggest that anyone do is to look at those who are really doing what you believe is excellence and outstanding examples of performance and achievement, and just dive deep into the things that you can learn and see. I mean, so much of what we all need to learn and know is out there for the public consumption. And better yet, with LinkedIn, which is how you and I got connected, you can reach out to people who you find who are doing those things, and oftentimes you can actually connect with them directly. People yearn to help one another. They are eager to demonstrate their expertise. And frankly, one of the best ways to demonstrate your proficiency is to be able to teach it and to help others to become proficient. And when you share at that level and you can offer that kind of insight, whether it's on technology or systems or developing talent or helping the people to make better decisions about how they manage their time, where they pursue their prospecting efforts, and how they organize themselves, when you can do that, you actually have taken your level of expertise to another level. And it forces you to demonstrate your ability to not only think and execute, but it also helps you see through other people's eyes where you can improve. Every time you teach, you learn, and every time you share, you gain.
Woo! That's a quotable right there. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So here's what I struggle with on a daily basis. I get inundated with PMs and DMs and messages and emails and phone calls in regards to, hey, you seem like you know what you're doing with this branding stuff. I need a new website. I need a new logo. I need more customers. You know, they're so focused on the tactics, right? These tactics, and they're not spending so much time on the strategy, that foundational work that's going to grow this thing to, you know, as large and tall and strong and profitable as you want. How do you communicate to these folks that you can't start at the top?
Right. So it's really hard unless you're comfortable looking at the deep, we'll call it the inner space of who you are, and doing it regularly. It's very hard for most folks to kind of peel those layers of onion back fast and effectively in a short period of time. So I really recommend that folks take a look at things like Simon Sinek's, find your why, or understanding your why. Because when you get at what your why is, it forces you to understand what makes you tick, what you value, where your passion lies, what really makes you get up in the morning, what makes you think about why a change is good. And when you understand what you value and why, then you really can get at what makes you change and what makes you successful. Because success is going to be determined by each individual, right? Whether that's happiness or having flexibility in time or having freedom in whatever form that takes. But in order to tackle the biggest challenges, you really have to be very comfortable in your own skin, and you have to be very vulnerable. You have to be in a place where you're recognizing that we don't know everything. When you reach out for that kind of insight and expertise, you're demonstrating that. It's a great place to be. And that's why, from my vantage point, franchising's got so much to offer, because those systems that are called franchises have been built by people who've learned by hitting all the bumps in the road and putting a system together that really has all the answers. And so the truth is, it becomes a game of execution. And when you're looking for how to do it even better, in franchising, you're surrounded by a set of peers who are also owners, who can help you overcome the challenges because they're standing and sitting in your shoes.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. I like it. Now, let's not get it twisted, guys. When you get into a franchise opportunity and you become a franchisor or a franchisee, right? Let's just say that it's not a lot of the heavy lifting's done. So the processes and systems and a lot of that stuff has already been done for you, which is great. That's why I kind of love this model. Mm-hmm. However, let's understand thoroughly that it's not something that you can just purchase and walk away from like it's going to run itself.
Absolutely.
Right. And I've seen that happen many, many times. I've worked with many, many franchises before. And one of the things that I saw in the one franchise that I worked with, it was like the Wild West. I don't think that their foundation was solid enough. And so you had some franchisees doing one thing and another franchisee doing another thing. And so none of the marketing was in sync, which drove me nuts because I was in charge of designing it all. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I don't know what Tom's doing. Like, didn't you talk to Terry, like, and like, well, where are the two founders? Like, where are they all at in this conversation? And so it's not I don't want to say it's correct me if I'm wrong. Is it turnkey or is it not turnkey?
Well, what you just described is some of the challenges that arise when organizations either franchise too early or grow too fast and don't stay connected with their core beliefs and what drove the success to begin with. So at the heart of any franchise is an entrepreneur's passion that originally created something of immense value, and it's just a model that worked. And what happens over time is systems get created around it to make it even better. A marketing platform is created around that brand, and consistency has to be created in the form of behavior by all who support and all who represent, and as I like to call them, are ambassadors of the brand, which is what a franchisee is. But if you stray from that consistency and that uniformity of being an ambassador of the brand in the same manner as your neighbor or as your franchise peer in another market, there's some problems there. Now, there's always room for, we'll call it, creating your own personal flavor. And that's about how you develop personal human relationships. But the way that the business appears online, the way that marketing is done through social media, the way that the brand, if it has a retail presence in the form of signage, and the way that the product physically is delivered or service-wide is provided, it has to be consistent. It must be, or the brand doesn't have strength, the franchise system doesn't have sustainability. And what happens when that occurs is conflict and really a terrible, unfortunate outcome. So the strongest brands and franchises are the ones who have learned that the keys, and if you're a franchisee, the keys are consistency. The key is uniformity at a certain level. And that is something that as a franchisee, 3 keys to success, you absolutely have to respect the value and purpose of a brand and its existence within a franchise system. The brand is what ties everyone together. You must buy into the core values, underpinnings of what those beliefs in that brand are. Secondly, you have to be coachable. You must be capable of being taught, and you must have the humility to recognize that you don't know everything, and frankly, none of us do. But you have to have that humility to say, oh, thank you for pointing that out. That's really helpful, because that's what franchises that are successful do best. They coach their franchisees to optimum performance or great levels of success. And it's never a straight line. Listen, no one's perfect. And not any franchise system is perfect, because it's all about human relationships. But if you're coachable, if you recognize and believe and support the value of the brand, and you're passionate about the business you're in, you have to believe in it. You have to feel great about it. You have to wake up in the morning feeling that what you're involved with has got a purpose that you believe in. And those 3 things, that makes for not only happiness, but for business success as well. And especially so in a broad franchise system.
Ooh, I love it. So real quick, just to recap, it was coachability, it was believing in the brand, and what was the third?
The third is to recognize that the brand itself, you have its core beliefs at heart, its value, what that brand is, and you also have to recognize that your peer group are who matter. You've got to be not just coachable, you have to be a part of the community. So you have to have a passion. That third part is your passion, waking up in the morning for what you're doing. It's not about looking at the brand or looking at the systems and going, I live for it. It's about that element of almost intangibility that says, I really like this. I buy it because I actually see its value. And so therefore, I actually deliver far greater than anybody ever anticipated. And that's where you find that inner satisfaction, that when you combine it with those other things, your success is really almost unlimited.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. So now let's talk about getting back to your why for a second, because I think this is what's really going to help client, well, at least our audience thrive in their businesses in 2019. And so I had an epiphany. I'm going through a training right now. I love to do this continuing training. You know, I think as the brand doctor, one must, right? You know, and I'm going through this training right now that's helping me really refine my messaging. And I was asked the other day why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared with them that, you know, my backstory is one that some may or may not know already, but that backstory has really been a strong driver in my life. And if you want to learn more about the backstory, you can go to my website. I won't waste your time here. And as we continued that conversation, it led to me saying, I do this for my son, I do this for my dad, and I do this for my wife. And like, those are the three people that I do it for. Like, honest to God. And
no, that's where it's at. Family first.
Right. And I think some people may be a little bit afraid to just come out and say something like that, because we are trained to think and act and feel and do and everything for the client, right? It's not about you. It's about the client. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the client. I get that. I get that. Of course, nobody wants to hear somebody else talk for 30 minutes all about themselves. We get that. But I think we need to keep it real with our audience too. And when that came out of my mouth, it hit me. Because the next thing the instructor asked me was, do you talk about that enough in your marketing?
Mm-hmm. So where you're going, I completely buy into and absolutely accolade you maximally for digging deep and going hard against, if you will, your human and natural grain, which is to dig deeper into and underneath we'll call it the mechanical elements. Because all of those technical things you can teach or be taught, but where you're going is after the hardest, toughest place that there is, which is to find your authentic self and make it a part of how you relate to people every day. And so what happens when you succeed in what you're trying to do, and by the way, this is not me pontificating, this is me saying my aspiration. When you do that, you come across to people as being not just authentic, but being the kind of person that everyone wants to see in someone they want to be with, which means that they may not like what you have to say, but because you're being authentic, because you're being real, they appreciate what you're saying. And they appreciate what you're bringing because you're making it real in ways that are extraordinarily personal. And that's real life. And everyone has a family. Everyone, and by the way, when you use the word family, I extend that to friends and even to a whole host of business contacts that have become friends over time and now have become part of family. They know what's going on in my life. They know what's most important to me, and let's make no bones about it. Family first, always. But what we do and how we bring value and how we create value that ultimately helps people to build the thing that they're trying to become successful at or find it enriches us at the same time. So I'm big on paying it forward. And what you're doing by digging in to find that what makes you tick on the innermost level and beginning to become comfortable sharing it is a gift that you're giving to everyone you're interacting with. And that is a form of paying it forward. And that is priceless.
Well, I appreciate that, Phil. I really do. And here's the thing. I bring this up, and we're talking about this today because I want to encourage more of you that are watching and listening to do more of this. I think at the end of the day, that's all we want is the truth out of who it is that we interact with and do business with, and allow in our lives. and it's our responsibility to give it to them. And sometimes the truth hurts, but what will it always do? It will set you free.
Stronger.
Yeah, and it will set you free.
Will set you free.
Yeah. And that is something that, you know, once I started applying in business, my business just began to thrive and grow and build, and it became something way bigger than I had ever imagined. And I want to pass this along to all of you today, you know, using Phil as the subject matter expert here today, because he's got way more experience than I do with this stuff. And I think him recognizing that and him pulling this out of me and pointing this out on today's episode, the props go to you, buddy, not me. But
your discovery and your efforts are an example to what we all need to do regularly.
I think once we start doing that, we're going to become better CEOs. We're going to become better parents. We're going to become better friends and sisters and brothers and business owners and leaders. And I truly believe marketing has took a massive, massive shift and turn. I would say over the past 24 months, I've been to quite a few conferences in the past 2 years, and I've seen a huge shift in what used to be direct response marketing, you know, sort of take this action or else, right? To I'm done with that. Like, stop shoving the cheeseburgers down my throat. I'm not hungry anymore for that. Like, I need to know. Yeah, I need to know who you are as a person. I need to know what your morals are, your values are, your why, and why you're doing this. You know, I listen, I'm just going to put it out there. I would be skeptical of someone who said to me, this is why you do it, because of your family. It just sounds so weird saying that, right? Yeah. But like, if somebody questioned me on that, I would really reconsider working with that person, because that scares me. You know, to your point, what you become more comfortable doing when you really dig deep and you figure out where your authentic self lies is you become comfortable speaking about business, speaking about challenges, problems, issues, and the examples become more personal. And sometimes it's helpful to utilize a family example. And sometimes it's important for you to be comfortable talking about the vulnerable experiences you've had. Because look, when we talk about things that occur and talk about them and call things results and data, and we review scorecards and we talk about results and how we got there and why we didn't get there and all of that, that's useful. It's kind of for some folks, it's too straightforwardly black and white. Where's the lesson to be learned? Sometimes the lesson to be learned is deeper than the numbers, right? And so where it is the unvarnished, uninhibited, and crystal clear way that a child reacts to the things that we do, as a for example of illustrating examples of when I did this or said this, this is what my child heard. And you use those instances, which I can see you nodding your head, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They really see what the true reality is. And what we need to get away from, and I myself have to call my pot and kettle very, very black. I am not practicing what I preach every day. I aspire to it. I just have to get caught there, and I count on my friends to hold up their hand and say, hold on. Just straightforwardly simplify this. What's the point? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you really need? And why are we talking about this? When that happens, that's like being given a gift. And you have to be very comfortable not to recoil and to freak out, but to rather embrace that, understand why that occurred, and use that as one of those pivot points to learn immensely about yourself and thank that person. Because oftentimes, as you know, it's the crisis moment or the difficult conversation or the unflattering instance where you learn the most, right? You learn the most from your failures. And in a relationship side of things where you're talking to clients or prospects,
that learning experience can sometimes galvanize a relationship more deeply than any success.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, dude. This is so good. I could go on another hour, hour and a half talking about this stuff. Honestly, I got to wrap it up. I got to start getting into the brand doctor's prescription for this episode. There's so much good stuff that came out of this conversation, but there's a few glaring things that I really want to highlight and point out. So number one, getting truthful with yourself and with your audience about what your why really means, what it stands for, and that mission and vision that you are creating for your business and yourself, and not being afraid to share that at its truest core. I've held back a lot. My wife and I have had deep conversations about this stuff. She says, you are a bit much when it comes to personality and everything. You might want to tone that down. And I said to her, I feel like I'm in a cage when I do that. And I am by no means trying to hurt your feelings or disrespect you or my son or this family, but I need to get this message out in the way that I feel that is truly authentic. And I will continue to do that. And that's a tough thing to say, especially to a significant other. But I believe that I've gained that respect because of that, not only from her, but from my audience as well. So sharing that with you and highlighting that on today's show is very, very important. Second thing I want to talk about is believing in the brand itself. I think that is extremely important, because if you don't believe in the brand and what it is that you're doing, then what makes you think anyone out there would invest their hard-earned cash in you? And why would they believe in you?
Yeah.
So you really gotta think that one through. If you wouldn't buy your own product, why would somebody else?
Yeah, to your point, it's making sure that you don't get caught up in the sheer detail of the economics and the intoxication of the dollar. Start first with your belief in that brand, and if it resonates with you, then go after the rest of it.
Yes, 1,000%. The question from the community today, one that rings a real bell in my book, and it fits perfectly in today's conversation. And it is, what are the top 3 attributes of a great business owner? And I'll share with you my thoughts, and then I'll throw it over to Phil. I think we talked about one of them already, and that one is coachability. I think if you're not coachable as a business owner, you will fail, and you will fail hard. I did not get to where I'm at, and I'm sure, Phil, you could say the same thing, to where I'm at today without putting my ego in my back pocket, understanding and realizing that I don't know everything, and that I need to seek help from people that are better than me. And being the big fish in the small pond worked when I was in my early 20s, and it stroked my ego really, really nicely. But then reality set in. Okay. So coachability would be number 1 for me. Number 2, how you treat people. My uncle owns one of the biggest construction companies in the state of New Jersey, highway construction. If you're on any one of those highways in New Jersey, I'm sure you saw us. One of the things that he said to me when I was a teenager, when I was looking up to him as he was like a god to me next to my father. I said, Uncle Joe, how do you get to the level of success to where you're at? And he said, they call me Hanky because Henry is not a real Italian name. So he says, Hanky, here's what you do. You treat the janitor the same way you treat the CEO. And I was like, I think I was maybe 16 years old when he told me that. And it never, ever left my mind.
Standing wisdom.
Yeah. And I watch him do it. I mean, when he was building the children's hospital at Hackensack Medical Center, here's a quick little funny story. My office overlooked the construction, and I see this guy roll up, and he's in his Range Rover and he's in this Brioni suit. He jumps out and he grabs one of the workers, literally drags him off the excavator and gets in the excavator in his suit and shows this guy how to dig the hole. And now there's like a group forming around this, because this was a moment. I'm watching this out of my office window when I was working at Hackensack, laughing, going, there he goes. And then he shook the guy's hand. It wasn't like he didn't rip him off like he was nasty, but he shook the guy's hand, patted him on the back, and got back in his truck and went. And I was like, that was another moment, right? So you got to treat people the same. And Seth Godin may tell me differently, but I think when you show that respect, that's the point that I want to point out here. Mm-hmm. When you show that respect, it's a game changer. People are going to see you way differently. And they're also going to see you when you treat the janitor differently than when you treat the CEO. So that's number 2. Mm-hmm. Number 3 would be to really understand the power of strategy and to leverage strategy over tactics. It's very quick to get into the sexy stuff, like building the website and getting out there and showcasing your expertise in the marketing. But if you don't have a strategy that supports all of that, you're going to die. I mean, in plain English, it's not going to be a sustainable model for you. And as a franchising expert, Phil will tell you the same, I'm sure. You got to have a solid strategy before you get to build the castle. So those are my 3. Phil, what would you say your 3 are?
Building on those points that you just made, I would say one of the things that you have to be really comfortable with is you gain and you grow much more when you listen. So listen more, speak less. How do you know what your client's real needs are? How do you understand where the pain points are? How do you even understand the dynamics if you're meeting with or interacting with a group of what that group is if you're talking all the time? Some people are multi-talented and can read body language and actually read an audience very, very well. I'm not that gifted. It really means you think about what you're going to say and you go in with a purpose. Make sure that what you're doing is in alignment with your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, and let it be. Be comfortable with that uncomfortable silence once you've said what you feel you need to say. And of course, probing and asking questions is one of the best ways to step back and be able to listen. And I would say beyond that, I would also say that it's very important to realize that the world is an imperfect place, and the path to your ultimate outcome or your success, however you choose to frame it, is going to be one with bumps in the road, with ups and downs, with reality that is each of those turns is going to be an opportunity to learn. And so when you think about it, what that really means is that if you can hone your capacity to be resilient and recognized as a resilient person, that every opportunity, every bump in the road, every hiccup, every roadblock is actually a genuine learning moment or opportunity. And you will put yourself in a much better state of mind. You'll be more aware of what's happening so that you can help to hopefully, as the definition of insanity is, right, not to expect a different result from doing the same thing. So if you listened well and you're resilient, you observe what the opportunities were, perhaps you put yourself on a path so that that doesn't get repeated. Lastly, I would say that the best, building on your point about treating everyone in the same manner, is if you care, you will teach. And that goes to the ultimate lesson that we all need to learn and live, which is love. So if you really love what you're trying to accomplish or the environment you're in, and you really care about the people who you're interacting with, and the example you gave of your uncle getting into the equipment and with a suit on, teaching a newbie, if you will, or a younger person, how that really got done, that did so much more than just teaching how the hole gets dug. That showed humility, that showed caring, that showed that it doesn't matter what suit you wear or how you put your trousers on. It just matters that you care, because everyone can gain something from a learning experience. And what did your uncle gain? I guarantee you he took away from that something that lit him up, that stoked his passion. He probably went into the office thereafter, and I bet you he was even happier and even more excited, because he got to touch what really matters, which is where the work is actually getting done all the time. And he learned from that as well. So when you really care, you teach. And when you do that, you're sharing your love. And when you do all of that, the results start to come back together. And the more often you can put that together, the more often you're going to see the results be in the direction you want them to be. Not to forsake that a plan and strategy and an absolute focus and dedication, commitment has to be there. But when you do those things all together, great things happen.
Yeah, that was well said, Phil. To tie this all up in a bow, I would say this all comes back to the Jim Rohn quote. It's not what happens to you in life. It's how you respond to it. And I think that is a game changer for me. And I hope it's going to be a game changer for you, because I used to take everything so personal. I used to take everything for granted. And there wasn't anything that I didn't do wrong. And I'm just so happy that I was able to see all that in hindsight's 2020 and be able to change that and make a real recognizable change because I wouldn't be able to live. I wouldn't be able to do it. So it's not what happens to you. It's how you respond to it that matters most. And that is going to build you a very thriving business in 2019 and years to come. So I have to say, I'm a little sad, but we got to wrap this show up. So Phil, where can we learn more about you and what you do and how you serve your clients?
Sure. So you can visit Prosperity Services on the web, and the best way to get there is prosperitysvcs.com. That's prosperitysvcs.com. And when you visit there, you'll gain a little bit of perspective about our team, about our thoughts, about what we can offer, and you can reach out and schedule a conversation if you're inclined to say, I want to become an entrepreneur and perhaps franchising in that direction. You can also find me on LinkedIn, just as you and I connected, Henry. It's one of the best things on the planet. And I'm a huge believer that a significant portion of the folks that I consult with, I actually redirect away from franchising and entrepreneurship. Not everybody's wired for, built for, and really intended. Their purpose in life is good and it's wonderful, and they have greatness ahead of them. It just may lie in a different area. So I'm really happy to help people get where they need to be, leverage my network, and help people to see where their perhaps next step may be. More important to me than anything is that in doing this and having the opportunity to interact and meet with wonderful people like you, Henry, insightful people like you who are driving for success and helping brands transform, is that I get to see where greatness comes from. And where greatness comes from is it comes from stepping back and carefully examining not just where you've been, where you want to go, who's doing it great, and how you can learn from that, and offering to be a part of it. Give of yourself so that you can be even better. And when you help others, you will find that many other people will come to your aid to help you. And what you do here and how you do it, Henry, is admirable. I love it. I'm honored that you invited me.
Oh, thanks, Phil. I appreciate that, man. I really do. So there you have it, guys. Take what we talked about today, run with it, execute it, make it happen. It's not going to do anything sitting on the shelf, okay? It's not going to help you at all. So get out there and make it happen, and then report back. Let me know what you've applied and how that has changed your business and your life, because that's my true reward. When I get those DMs and PMs and messages and emails and text messages, that's what keeps me going. So have an amazing day, guys. But before we go, a couple quick things. One is like, comment, subscribe to this video if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're listening to us on iTunes, head over to iTunes, hit subscribe. Write a quick little written review for me if you can. If you're new to the show, welcome. Hope you loved your first episode. Go back and dive into some more. And lastly, I am enrolling new members into my monthly coaching program. We're going to keep this intimate, probably 10 to 15 people at the most. We have a couple people in there right now, which is great. This is a monthly coaching program. All the details are simply in the description or in the show notes. This is a program that's going to keep you accountable. It's going to keep you focused. It's going to keep your eyes on the prize. You're going to get mentorship from me, along with other folks that are in the group as well. But if you're looking for that help from a 13-year-old veteran in the space of branding and digital marketing and design, and you really want to fast track your way to get to where you want to be, this would be a perfect program for you with a very reasonable budget. So go check that out. If you have any questions, let me know. Have an amazing day, guys, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.